Welcome to another roundtable at the University of Sunderland. My name's Andrea Carl. I have a son who came to university through clearing, and I'm here to tell about his experiences.
Hi, I'm Alison O'Hara and I work at the University of Sunderland, and I'm a parent of our daughter Rosie, who came through clearing to the University of Sunderland last year.
So how did Rosie find results day?
I think it was quite daunting for her, to be honest, and daunting for us as parents. So as a family, I think we had prepared in the couple of weeks beforehand, leading up to clearing. I think the closer that we got to A-level results day, I think Rosie was a little bit worried that she hadn't got the A-level grades that she needed to get into her first and second choices. So I think it sort of hit me the night before actually clearing that this was it. This is what felt like the culmination of her school career had been, was A-level results. It's such an important day, isn't it, when you actually get to that day? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she logged onto the UCAS portal at 8:15 in the morning, so she knew she hadn't been accepted by the first two choices. So then we were sort of like, didn't know what she'd got at that point. And we were trying to be as fairly, laid back as we could be in front of her, not putting any pressure on her. So she went into school an hour or so later to collect her A-level results and with her friends. And she came back and she told us what she'd got. And we had a bit of a pause actually at that point. We didn't sort of try to panic her, as in, quick, you need to get on the phone lines now. But we just sort of sat there and we had breakfast, had a cup of tea, and she went upstairs to just have a sort of a chat with her mates. And you just sat downstairs, to sort of be led by her really about what she wanted to do for clearing. And we had done quite a bit of research, so we knew what her backup options would be. So we knew that Sunderland was going to be top of her list for her backup options because she was really interested in the accountancy course at Sunderland. So that's how it started, really.
I guess mine was slightly different for Matthew because obviously he'd already done a year in another North East university. He wasn't enjoying the university and he wasn't enjoying the course. So he got his results from his modules that he's taken, realised he hadn't passed them all, and then he just had a panic and a bit of a meltdown because he realised he was struggling and he didn't feel like he was getting the support that he needed. So I'd said to him, look, why don't you come and speak to someone, go through clearing and see if you can change universities and look at the different course options that you've got available. So ours was really, really different, which was strange and I didn't expect it. But yeah, so he's here now studying. Do you think the university degree is worth it? What do you think? What's Rosie's? I know Matthew is very, very much, he has to have a degree. He needs to get a degree. He wants a degree because he wants to he's very focused on employment and getting a good job from it. And so he's got, because for example, I'd said to him, why don't you take a year out, decide what you want to do? He was like, no, I need to do a degree.
I think with Rosie, leading up to sort of selection of A-levels, she was very sort of ambivalent about whether she wanted to go to university or not, or what she wanted to do. And I think a lot of children actually, when they're going into A-levels, are really not sure what they want to do. Some people, yes, they definitely want to go for a career focus, but I think it wasn't until we actually started going around the open days at the various universities that really started to focus her mind. And we went to, I think it was probably 8 universities, mainly northern universities during the open day. So we did come to Sunderland for one of the open days. And it wasn't until she started talking to other students, listening to the subject, and the talks about the subjects and the academics. And I think she really homed in on what she wanted to do as that process of going through the open days. She is actually studying quite a vocational course, so she's studying accounting and finance. And I know that she's really enjoying the course and she's doing well on it. And it actually gives some exemptions from various accountancy exams. So I know she thinks it's worth it. You know, to get those exemptions is really valuable for her. And sort of personally, from my own experience of watching her change during those first 3 months, I would say between September and December, while she was here, there has been a huge change in her. She's an only child, so obviously she's the apple of our eye, and we've always done loads of things for her. But actually, this is the first time where she's had to budget for herself. She lives away from home and actually having to cook for herself, you know, and to manage her time with the studies, to do her own washing and ironing. Well, no ironing, obviously, but washing. You know, all of those sorts of things, I think she just took for granted when she was living with us. So she has massively matured in those first 3 months from going to university. It's just remarkable, the change in her, which I don't think she would have done if she'd have stayed at home or maybe got a job. You know, having to do all those sort of things for herself, you know, it's just, she has just matured so much in those first 3 months.
Yeah, oh, that's good. I think for me with clearing, I think I found it quite hectic because it was such a rush, because Matthew was waiting for results of resits to come back from some modules that he's done. And when he found out, he decided, no, this wasn't for me. It was very much, I think it was within about 10 days that it was, right, I'm going to go through clearing. I'm going to apply to come to Sunderland. This is the course that I want to study. And then it was just putting everything else in place. So getting in touch with student finance to let them know about the change of university and the change of course. And then having to re-enroll. It was so quick, and you were sort of, it was very quick. But in the same breath, it was, Matthew was like, right, what do I do next? What do I do? Where do I go? He'd missed Freshers because in the time that he'd come to clearing, it was coming to the end of Freshers week as well. So he'd missed Freshers. So it was very much on Monday morning, right, where am I going? What do I need to do? So it was quite good, because when obviously I kept saying to him, don't worry, you're in the same boat as everybody else. You know, you're starting again, so don't panic. There'll be people there to help you. So when he came on the day, he was apprehensive, but I think he was all right. He was asking where he needed to go, where his timetable was and things like that, because I think that's the hard part as well, is he's got a part-time job. So work were asking him for his timetable as well, so that they could fit his shifts around his timetable. So he was getting pressure from that side, and he had to keep saying to them, you know, I'll get it, just give us time, wait till I get there and I'll get my timetable sorted. So did Rosie find clearing done, or is she all right with it?
Well, what we did actually on the day was, I suppose it was round about 10:30 before we'd actually, you know, sort of said, right, what are we going to do then? We phoned up Sunderland. What I'd done in advance, I'd actually got all of her grades for GCSEs and obviously her A-levels, and specifically what examining boards. I found that really helped to have the examining board there, because I knew that when we phoned up for clearing, they would take account of her grades, and sometimes it's a little bit tricky to find the exact GCSE or A-level, so having the examining board actually helped. And we phoned up the clearing line and got through obviously immediately, and it's sort of someone's on the phone and just takes you through the process. So the actual clearing part of it is really quite easy to do, because you're talking to a member of staff who's really quite experienced about taking people through clearing, and obviously we've got everything in front of us, and it's really heartening right at the end to say, right, yes, we're offering you a place at university. That's such a sort of an amazing moment. And so she did get into one of the courses straight away during clearing, but then in the space, so that was on the Thursday, and then by the Saturday, I had said to Rosie, did you want to go to the open day, because Sunderland has an open day on the Saturday. And I said, we can go and speak to the academics again. There's some specific questions we wanted to know about regarding student finance. So I said, we can go and chat there. So she wasn't sure whether she wanted to do that, but by about 1 o'clock on the Saturday, she decided, let's go to the open day. So I went with her to the open day. And it was lovely actually going to see the academics. They answer the questions about the course, and the student finance questions we got sorted out. And as a result of that, she actually swapped courses on the Monday. So she swapped from a foundation course, an integrated foundation year course, onto the main accounting and finance course, which was, a result for her. She was very pleased. And it was a huge relief, actually, to know that it felt like, yes, we actually know where she's going now. Mm-hmm. And then, so I'd taken the day off on Thursday to sort of help her through that. And obviously Saturday, we went to the open day. And then the next couple of weeks leading up to Freshers Week is actually really goes past so fast. But we were trying to find accommodation for her because she wanted to live in accommodation rather than staying at home. She could have commuted in from home, but she wanted to live in accommodation. And it was actually trying to find somewhere for her to live that she was happy living in. And those next couple of weeks went through that process of trying to find accommodation for her, and obviously then sorting out the other things like student finance. When you come through clearing, if you've already applied, you need to swap over your university course through student finance, and then go through the enrolment process. So obviously any university that you go to will have some kind of enrolment process, which takes you through into what we call our Flying Start programme, which basically is the programme that we have. Some of it is in person, some of it is online, which gets students up to speed for ready to start their course. Yeah. It's a sort of it takes place at the same time as Freshers. So there's lots of social activities, but you're also finding out about the library, who your academics are, where to go, etc. And you'll get your timetable for your first week and during that time as well.
Mm-hmm. I think I definitely agree. The finance part was really easy once you've put your application in, like you say, you can just go in and amend it, can't you? So I thought, right, at least he's got his finance in place. But I guess even if he hadn't, I would have just said, apply for your finance straight away. Because we work here, I think probably we might know a little bit more than obviously parents who don't work in a university. But I think the help and the guidance that you get from the websites, from the university website and from Student Finance England, I think it's quite straightforward. Do you think?
Yeah, and particularly regarding student finance, there's loads of information out there about student finance. And at our open days, we also have talks by our student finance financial team, and they're there on the stand as well if you've got particular niche questions, I would say. And they're just so helpful. The knowledge is so thorough on student finance. They answered my questions immediately over the couple of points that I wanted to ask them about.
So you're saying obviously Rosie lives in a house, so does Matthew. What did you think? Do you think the cost of living for Matthew? I know the cost of living hasn't impacted him at all. He just pays his bills and he doesn't think about it and things like that. He's still not switching his lights off when he should. He has got a part-time job, which obviously we've always said he would have to get a part-time job to help support him while he was going through his studies. We do help him. We do support him wherever we can. I think I was a little bit worried about the cost of living crisis when it started, just because you know what teenagers are like and they're not bothered. But I feel like he's managing he manages really, really well. Does Rosie, do you think?
We do help her out, but it's we're doing this so that it's a lesson on her budgeting. So she has to be able to manage on her student loan for food, any socialising, any clothes or anything else, makeup, hair, everything like that. She has to find that money from her student loan. She is trying to get a job, and we wanted her to try and get a job quite early on, and she was resistant to it, let's just say. But as time has gone on, she's realised she really does need to get a part-time job alongside her studies, not only just for the money, but it's actually really good experience, so that she knows that she will have to get up a certain time in the morning, that she will need to build up some skills around sort of teamwork, etc. Not that I'm saying she hasn't done that in past in sort of sports activities, but it is different going to work. So we do really want her to try and find a way of having her own money rather than just relying solely on the student loan. She has been quite innovative in that she's been selling some items on Vinted, which I never thought I'd see her do. But she's actually like, oh wow, this is a great way of making a bit of money. So all of those things that I've bought her in the past, which she's now selling on, has been worth it. But yeah, she's sort of, we did help her a little bit with her budget to start off with, but she's been, she's quite sort of savvy in terms of spreadsheets, etc. She's quite maths focused. So she does know how to budget, and she has split her money up into how much she needs to have each week available. And, she does have weeks where she's got no money left whatsoever. And if she's over at our house, she'll be raiding our fridge. But, she is really trying to keep to her budget each week.
Well, to be fair, she's doing better than Matthew. He does. I mean, obviously, he budgets to pay for his house and things like that, and for his food and things. But I keep trying to tell him to put it into weekly. So because obviously he's got his wage coming in and his student loan. And I'll say to him, budget it monthly or do it weekly. And he does and he doesn't. He just puts a lot. He has a savings account that's attached to his current account. So what he does is he tries to transfer so much each time. But we don't know how that's going. He's like Rosie, I guess. He comes home on a weekend, takes a few things out of the fridge, and then leaves on a Monday morning. Matthew loves the course. He's really enjoying it. He said the university's so helpful as well, the academics. He feels he's not... I think he struggled, and Matthew sometimes struggles, I think, and he sometimes needs help, but because the university that he went to previously, he felt he couldn't approach academics to ask for the support, where I think he's different. He feels like he's got a really, really good relationship with the module leaders, and he's not afraid to just go knock on the door. They've got a really good open door policy where they'll just knock on the door and he can go in and ask anything, so he feels really comfortable.
Yeah, Rosie's really enjoying the course. She'd not done accounting before. She had done business studies at A-level, and so she was really interested in business, and I know that's the area that she'd eventually want to go into. But she's really enjoying it. I was a bit sort of tentative as to, is she going to stick there? Worried that, was this the thing for her? And really, she has enjoyed it so much. She had her first set of exams just after Christmas. So she had 3 exams after Christmas, and a lot of that course is actually exam-based. And she's done really well at them. I mean, she was just so pleased that she's doing okay on it, and we're pleased. She just seems to have found her niche, so I'm very chuffed with her.
Oh, that's good.
So one of the things to remember when students come to university is that they are adults. So we have to be very clear as a university that we treat them as adults, and that we are not breaching any kind of confidentiality when we're talking to parents and supporters of students. Having said that, we do have a lot of advice and help available on our website and at our open days for parents and supporters who want to come along and talk to our staff and support staff about the university process, about applying to university, and about the support that's there for students when they come to university. So we have a lot of information on our website under the parents and supporters pages. Lots of tips and guidance, some videos there on the student application process to university, student finance, accommodation, support services that we provide to students whilst they're here with us, as well as the kind of careers support that we provide to them as they're drawing to the end of their university experience. So we also run a parents and supporters newsletter, which is usually about once a month, and we try and remind you about the deadlines that are coming up and any tips and advice that we think is relevant at that particular stage of the student application process, as well as any open days or events that you're welcome to join students when they come on campus too.
I work quite a few of the open days, and I'll meet quite a lot of the parents as well in the registration stands. And they're always really welcoming, because I'll always point them to the stand, tell them, we can keep them up to date with information. Because I guess, like Rosie was with, and Matthew, you would say to Matthew, right, what's your UCAS deadline date? Or, when have you got to apply for this? And he'd be like, oh, well, so I think sometimes it's just good for parents to know as well, because
I had to jig him along a little bit to say, remember you've got to do this, or remember you've done that. If I didn't have that information, I wouldn't know, you wouldn't be aware. So I do think, I mean, personally for me, I did think having the knowledge to be able to support Matthew and keep reminding him of these things that he needed to do was really, really useful for me as well as a parent, because I didn't feel left in the dark then. I felt like I knew sort of the process of what was going on.
We actually have a guide for parents and supporters, which you can download if you apply to, if you sign up for our newsletter. We also have it as a printed copy at our open days, and it covers lots of the areas that you would find helpful during the process of a student applying to university. And it actually has a sort of a handy 2-page guide within it of the student application process, so you can see what's sort of relevant at particular stage during the application process. So it's really great to see parents and supporters at the open day. So very often I'm on one of the stands, usually the parents stand. It's great for them to come along and have a chat with us, raise any issues that they may have or any questions that we can help them with.
Thanks, Alison. That's been really helpful. I guess if anybody else wants any further information, if you're a parent and you feel like you're kept in the dark, or you just want to sign up to our newsletters and receive more information, then you can at www.sunderland.ac.uk/parents.